Hi there, Sage Canaday of VO2 Max Productions here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about marathon training in the context of what I've learned from key influential training books. I've already done a marathon training talk on how to get faster in the marathon, how to crack 3 hours in my other video, which I'll link to up here. But this video, I'm going to talk about some major books that have influenced my training philosophy. And obviously over the years I've had my own experience, professional marathoning experiences, but also working with a lot of different coaches at the NCAA D1 collegiate level to post-collegiate level now. And I've also learned a ton from fellow athletes, guys that I've competed with in college, in high school even, at Hansons Brooks, and ultra runners now on the trail. Everyone kind of has a different story, but some of the fastest people I've interacted with on a regular basis was Olympian Brian Sell, 2008 Olympian, who ran 2:10, and then my teammate also at Hansons Brooks, Desiree Davila, she got second at Boston a couple years ago. So some really fast marathon runners. Without further ado, here are the books. First book, Daniel's Distance Running Formula. This blew my mind. I read it in 7th grade. This is the original edition. I think he's on the 3rd edition now. But this book changed everything for me. And basically, in a nutshell, he prescribes different intensities, different paces for different types of workouts and explains them very well with a bit of science. He's an exercise science guy, but he's also one of the best coaches out there. And anything from training for the mile up to the marathon is covered in this book. And it basically, I think the key takeaway was he has this table called the VDOT table, which takes your race performances at shorter distances, say like a 5K or 10K, and converts them into equivalent performances across the chart. So you could see what your VDOT, which is related to your VO2 max, your velocity at VO2 max, and what intensities of workouts you should be at. And basically, if you're running intervals on the track as a VO2 max type of workout, he'll tell you what pace to run your 1,000-meter repeats, or your half-mile repeats, or mile repeats. And for me, in middle school and high school, that was huge, because I wasn't just going out there and running as hard as I could for a fastest possible average, or going out and nailing out a 3-mile tempo run as hard as I could. I realized, hey, there's some certain pace ranges you have to go, and overtraining is actually pretty easy to do, especially on something like a tempo run. Most people go too hard. So great book, I'd check that out, Daniel's Distance Running Formula. Second book I want to talk about is Advanced Marathoning by Pete Vitzinger. Cornell grad, 2-time Olympian. He was the first American to beat Alberto Salazar at the marathon in the 1984 Olympic trials. And great exercise science background, real similar to Daniel's approach, except this one is specifically marathoning. And going to my first marathon in 2007, I used a lot of the workouts from this book. The idea of doing a VO2 max workout 10 to 12 to 14 days before your marathon, introducing some speed later in the program, but also periodizing your training first with a huge aerobic base with a lot of lactate threshold workouts that consist of 2-mile, 3-mile cruise interval to tempo run repeats, as well as steady state tempo runs, and doing a lot of long runs, 20 to 22 miles almost on a weekly to 10-day cycle basis, as well as a midweek longer run of 14 to 15 or even 16 miles depending on your mileage. So more of a high mileage plan, I'd say, but very applicable to all sorts of marathon runners, especially if you're trying to get under that 3-hour barrier. Then, of course, this big textbook, Better Training for Distance Runners, Peter Coe and Dr. David Martin. Basically a textbook. It's full of exercise physiology, just some real dense stuff. I think there's a diagram of the Krebs cycle in here, anaerobic glycolysis, all that good stuff. Plotting lactate curves with increasing intensities and velocities. Also very applicable to shorter track distance races, but there's a whole chapter on marathon training and racing. And basically the takeaway with Coe's theory, Peter Coe was Sebastian Coe's dad. He coached him to a lot of really intense interval workouts and a lot of speed on the track, 800 to 1500 mainly. But the big takeaway is Coe's 5-pace theory, which basically says you should be training at 2 paces faster than your goal race pace and 2 paces slower than your goal race pace, which corresponds with a lot of other philosophies. Because if you look at it in terms of the marathon, you got your goal marathon race pace in the middle. You take it up a notch. You're doing lactate threshold tempo run types of workouts at half marathon pace, or maybe only 10 seconds a mile faster than your goal marathon pace. There's a spectrum there. And then another notch faster than that would be VO2 max types of traditional speed work on the track, at least speed work for ultra marathon runners or marathon runners. And then 2 notches slower than your race pace would be more of a steady state, maybe long run pace, something that you do is a pretty steady long run for 20 miles, and then a really easy recovery pace, which would be the slowest run on that spectrum. So very balanced theories there, a lot of science. I love the science stuff. This reads like a textbook though. It's over the top for me, even a lot of people. So very dense book, but very influential. And then finally, this is kind of a self-plug, obviously, for my own book. I don't usually plug this a whole lot nowadays because I'm almost a little embarrassed with some of the writing. I wrote it when I was 22, 23 years old, running for the Hansons. My inside experience at the Hansons Brooks marathon training program. I was fresh out of college, going pro in marathon road racing, and I was lucky enough to get the support that I did in the program. But I was definitely at a very dark time in my life when I wrote this book, and it's kind of reflected in there. Some kind of immature stories, some dark thought processes, but all of the individual experiences aside, I think a lot of the ex-Hansons runners out there, and there's like 40 of us or so, would relate to the experiences in the book, and you get a real inside look at what it's like on a day-to-day basis of living the lifestyle at Hansons Brooks. And you could see we're doing these cold, hard workouts, tempo runs outside in the winter. I'll put a video link there so you could see kind of that experience. And just, basically training, overtraining, getting injured, things like that. This is not the Hansons marathon method. We were banging out 20-mile long runs in an hour 55, hour 52 all the time. We were doing a lot of workouts that overtrained me a lot. You read about the 130-mile weeks, 140, 150-mile weeks. This guy, Brian Sell, 160 miles a week. If you don't get injured and you don't overtrain, you will PR eventually in the marathon. So you get to hear all the training we did leading into Boston, a whole 12-week program of exactly what my teammates Drew Pauly and Chad Johnson and I did going into Boston in 2010. And so that's kind of what the framework I was trying to work around there. But it is my personal account. It's very rough around the edges. I think my writing was definitely my weakest score on my SAT 2s, but and it's very unpolished. It was not edited very well. But if you want to hear the real story, the real account, Hansons Brooks, and what the types of workouts we were doing, this has all the numbers and all the data in it. So I think that's about it for influential marathon training books. Obviously, I said I've learned a lot from coaches, stuff I've read online through lay study, coaches I haven't even met, like Renato Canova. Arthur Lanyard's always an influence for a lot of coaches, Brad Hudson, John Kellogg of Let'sRun.com, who helped my college coach, Robert Rojo Johnson of Let'sRun.com, with a lot of the training details, even when I was jumping up to the marathon in college. Alright, so I think the key takeaways from all these books can be oversimplified basically into the idea that you have to periodize your training. You have to change things up. You can't follow the same 7-day cycle month after month, year after year, and expect to improve. Variables like mileage, intensity, and your tempo run, lactate threshold pace are going to have to increase or change, as well as the dynamics of your workouts. Not just the pace, but rest recoveries, in your, what surface you're running on, things like that, especially as you mature, as you age, hopefully as you gain strength and speed, mixing in hills into your training, things like that. And then also to look at your training as needing variety in terms of different paces. You can't just be running a goal marathon race pace. You have to be doing workouts with a specific intention in mind at specific times. So for example, if you're doing a tempo run workout, maybe you're doing a long tempo run of 5 to 6 miles at marathon pace. That's going to be a totally different workout than doing 3x2 mile repeats at half marathon pace with a 5-minute rest in between. Even though they're both lactate threshold / tempo run types of efforts, and ones that are out in marathon goal pace and ones that closer to half marathon pace, they're still a slightly different type of workout and a slightly different stimulus. And the key of mixing all those types of workouts, whether it's a lactate threshold, tempo run workout, VO2 max / speed workout, or a long run into your whole plan, that mix is the key to training success. And some of it is an individual thing. And I found that to be very true. So in a team environment like Hansons or a collegiate program, you know, it's a good sample size of runners all doing the same program. Some get hurt, some overtrain, some blow up, but some race well. And that is a real key takeaway too. There's no one size fits all plan that can be derived out of these books into your program, but you could apply a lot of the principles and learn through self exploration. And they are scientifically sound principles a lot of times. So a lot of commonalities do exist, and it is worth following and worth reading about. It's a fun passion of mine, and hopefully something that you'll enjoy as well, designing your performance program and enjoying the training process. So I think that about wraps it up for this training talk. It's probably way too long, but if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I can't promise you I'll get back to all of them because they're coming in from different videos now a lot, but I really do appreciate all the views and all the support. So if you're interested in maybe a new training talk topic, feel free to post a comment below, and the one with the most thumbs up will be one that'll get my attention hopefully, and one that I'll do a future training talk on. So this wonderful art piece behind me was created by my girlfriend Sandy Nypaver, who runs her own art business, and you could check that out at facebook.com/believeart. Her business is I Believe Art, and she creates custom paintings, so definitely check that out, and check out her blog, sandynypaver.blogspot.com. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.